The dust had finally settled over the ruined city. Corporal Ji-hoon Kim moved carefully through the broken buildings, his medical bag heavy on his shoulder. The fighting had stopped an hour ago, but the screaming had not. Somewhere in the rubble, people were hurt and dying. Ji-hoon was a medic, not a fighter. He carried a rifle, but he had never wanted to use it. His job was to save lives, not take them. The war between humans and the Galactic Coalition had been going on for 3 years now. Ji-hoon still did not understand why they were fighting. Something about territory, something about misunderstandings. It did not matter to the wounded. He heard a sound behind a collapsed wall. Not a human sound. Something different. Ji-hoon raised his hand to signal his partner Taewon to stop. They both listened. There it was again. A grinding noise like rocks moving, then a gasp of pain. Ji-hoon moved around the wall carefully. His heart pounded. It could be a trap. Coalition soldiers sometimes pretended to be injured to ambush human medics. But Ji-hoon could not ignore the sound. If someone was hurt, he had to help. That was who he was. Behind the wall, pinned under a metal beam, was a Quen soldier. Ji-hoon recognized the species immediately. The Quen were one of the main coalition races fighting against humanity. This one was female, judging by the patterns on her face. Her leg was crushed under the beam. Blue blood pooled around her. The Quen woman saw Ji-hoon and her eyes went wide with terror. She tried to pull herself away, but the beam held her trapped. She made a sound that Ji-hoon's translator rendered as a scream. Not a scream of pain, though her leg must have hurt terribly. This was a scream of pure fear. Ji-hoon held up his hands, showing they were empty. He spoke slowly, knowing his words would come out in her language through her translator. I am a medic. I want to help you. The Quen woman thrashed harder despite the obvious agony it caused her. No, stay away. Her voice was high and desperate. Kill me quickly, please. Just make it quick. Ji-hoon frowned, confused. Why would she ask him to kill her? He took a slow step forward. I am not going to kill you. Your leg is badly hurt. If I do not help you, you will die slowly. Lies, the woman screamed. You are human. You will torture me. Everyone knows what humans do to prisoners. Please, I am begging you, just end it now. Ji-hoon stopped. His stomach turned cold. She thought he was going to torture her. She believed he would hurt her on purpose. He looked at Taewon, who stood behind him with a shocked expression. Taewon shook his head slowly, equally disturbed. Listen to me, Ji-hoon said, keeping his voice calm and gentle. I do not know what you have been told about humans, but I promise you, I only want to help. My job is to save lives. I have saved human lives and alien lives. I do not care which side you fight for. You are hurt and I can help. The Quen woman stared at him. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. She was going into shock. Ji-hoon could see it in her eyes and the way her body trembled. He did not have much time. I am going to come closer now, Ji-hoon said. I am going to touch your leg to see how bad the injury is. It might hurt, but I will be as gentle as I can. No, the woman whimpered. Tears ran down her face, mixing with the dirt and blood. Please do not touch me. I know you will make the pain worse. I know you enjoy it. Just kill me, please. Ji-hoon's heart broke. What had this woman been told about his people? What lies had her leaders fed her? He moved forward anyway. He had to help her, even if she did not understand that. When Ji-hoon knelt beside her and reached for her leg, the Quen woman screamed. It was the loudest, most terrified sound Ji-hoon had ever heard. She screamed like she was already being tortured. She screamed like the world was ending. Ji-hoon touched her leg gently, feeling for broken bones. The woman's scream cut off suddenly. She stared at him with wide, confused eyes. Her whole body had tensed, waiting for terrible pain. But Ji-hoon's touch was careful, professional. His hands moved over her injury with practiced skill, assessing the damage. The bone is broken in 2 places, Ji-hoon said quietly, more to himself than to her. The beam crushed the muscle tissue. You have lost a lot of blood, but it is not arterial. That is good. The Quen woman said nothing. She just stared at Ji-hoon's hands as they worked. Her breathing was still fast, but now it seemed more from confusion than fear. Ji-hoon opened his medical bag and pulled out a pain suppressor. It was a small device that would block the pain signals from her leg. He held it up so she could see it. This will stop the pain. I'm going to attach it to your leg now. Why? The woman whispered. Her voice was hoarse from screaming. Why stop the pain? Do you not want me to suffer? Ji-hoon looked at her face. Really looked at her. Behind the fear and confusion, he saw intelligence. He saw a person not so different from himself. "No," he said simply. "I do not want anyone to suffer. Not ever." He attached the pain suppressor to her leg. The woman gasped as the relief hit her. Her body relaxed slightly. She looked at her leg, then at Ji-hoon, then back at her leg. Like she could not believe what was happening. Ji-hoon called Taewon over. Together they lifted the beam off the Quen woman's leg. She cried out, but not in pain this time. In surprise. They worked quickly, cleaning the wound and wrapping it in bandages treated with healing gel. Human medical technology was advanced. The gel would help her body repair itself faster. "What is your name?" Ji-hoon asked as he worked. The woman hesitated. "Vela," she finally said. Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Vela," Ji-hoon repeated. "My name is Ji-hoon. You are going to be okay. We will get you to a hospital." "But I am your enemy," Vela said. She sounded lost, like a child who did not understand the world anymore. "Right now," Ji-hoon said, meeting her eyes. "You are just someone who needs help. That is all that matters to me." Vela stared at him. Something in her eyes changed. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. A question. A doubt about everything she had been taught. When Ji-hoon touched her leg, her entire worldview had started to crack. And neither of them knew it yet, but that crack would change everything. Vela lay on the stretcher, staring at the ceiling of the human transport vehicle. The pain in her leg was gone. That should not be possible. Quen medical technology could reduce pain, but not eliminate it completely. Yet these humans had simply attached a small device to her leg, and the agony had vanished like it had never existed. She could still feel pressure. She could feel Ji-hoon's hands working on her leg, wrapping it in something soft. But there was no pain. It was impossible. Everything was impossible. Through the open door of the transport, Vela could see other humans moving. They were collecting wounded soldiers from both sides of the battle. She watched as 2 human medics carefully lifted a wounded Threxian soldier. The Threxian was twice their size and covered in scales that could cut human flesh. But the medics did not hesitate. They treated him with the same care they showed their own people. "Why?" Vela whispered. She did not mean to speak out loud. Ji-hoon looked up from his work. "Why what? Why are you helping coalition soldiers?" Vela asked. "We are your enemies. We are trying to kill you." Ji-hoon tied off the bandage and sat back. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes and dirt on his face. "Because you are hurt," he said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. "When someone is hurt, we help them. That is what we do." "But you are wasting supplies," Vela said. Her training told her this made no sense. "Resources should go to your own people first. You should save those medical supplies for human soldiers." "We have enough for everyone," Ji-hoon said. He pulled out a water bottle and offered it to her. "Are you thirsty?" Vela stared at the bottle. Was it poisoned? Was this part of the torture? Make her trust them, then hurt her? But her mouth was so dry. Her tongue felt like sand. Slowly she took the bottle. The water was cool and clean. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. "Thank you," she said quietly. The words felt strange. She was thanking her enemy. A woman's voice called out in Korean. Ji-hoon stood up quickly. "I will be right back," he told Vela. "Stay here and rest," like she could go anywhere with a broken leg. Vela watched as Ji-hoon hurried to help another medic. They were carrying a human soldier who was badly burned. The smell made Vela's stomach turn. The human was screaming. Ji-hoon immediately began treating him, his hands moving fast and sure. Vela watched closely. She had been trained to observe the enemy. But what she saw confused her. Ji-hoon was gentle with the burned soldier. He spoke to him in a soft voice, reassuring him. He was careful not to cause unnecessary pain as he cleaned the wounds. Where was the cruelty her commanders had told her about? Where was the savage pleasure in others' suffering? Another human approached Vela. This one was a woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She wore a captain's insignia. Vela tensed, preparing for interrogation or worse. "I am Captain Dayong Park," the woman said. Her translator was good. Her words came through clearly. "You are Vela, correct?" Vela nodded, not trusting her voice. "We are evacuating all wounded to Firebase Nova," Dayong continued. "That includes you. Your leg needs surgery that we cannot do here. Our field hospital has the equipment to save your leg." "You are taking me prisoner," Vela said flatly. "We are taking you to a hospital. Dayoung corrected. Yes, technically you are a prisoner of war. But right now you are a patient. We will treat you the same way we treat our own wounded. Why? The question burst out of Vela before she could stop it. Why would you do that? We have been at war for 3 years. My people have killed thousands of humans. We would not do this for you. Dayoung's expression softened slightly. I know, she said quietly. I have seen how the coalition treats human prisoners. But we are not you. We believe that even in war there are lines we do not cross. Refusing medical care to the wounded is one of those lines. She turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, Jihoon volunteered to continue as your primary medic. He will accompany you to Firebase Nova. He wanted to make sure you understood that you are safe. Vela said nothing. She could not process this information. It went against everything she knew about humans. The transport lifted off an hour later. Vela was secured to her stretcher, but she could see the other wounded around her. There were 5 human soldiers, 3 Threxians, 2 Quen, including herself, and 1 Varric. All enemies of humanity. All being treated by human medics. A young human woman with a kind face was treating the other Quen soldier. His name was Kelrin, and he had been shot in the chest. He was conscious but weak. The human medic, whose name tag read Heejin, worked on him with intense focus. You are going to be fine, Heejin said to Kelrin. The bullet missed your primary heart. We have given you blood. Your body is already healing. Kelrin stared at her with the same confused expression Vela knew was on her own face. You are saving my life, he said weakly. Yes, Heejin confirmed. That is my job. But I tried to kill your friends, Kelrin said. Today I killed at least 2 humans. I know I did. Heejin's hands paused for just a moment. Pain flashed across her face. Then she continued working. I know, she said softly. But right now you are not a soldier. You are a patient. And I am a doctor. That is all that matters right now. Vela watched this exchange in silence. She thought about her training. She thought about the lectures on human cruelty, the videos they had been shown of human violence, the warnings about human torture methods. None of it matched what she was seeing. Jihoon came to check on her. How is the pain? He asked. There is no pain, Vela said. Your medicine is very good. We have learned a lot about pain management, Jihoon said. Humans have a high tolerance for pain naturally, so we have studied it extensively. We understand how to block it in most species. High tolerance for pain? Vela repeated. Is that why the coalition thinks you are dangerous? Jihoon looked surprised. What do you mean? The Quen Protocols, Vela said. The official coalition doctrine about humans. It says that humans evolved to enjoy causing pain because you do not feel it as strongly yourselves. It says you are sadists by nature. Jihoon stared at her. His face went through several emotions, surprise, confusion, then horror. That is what they teach you? He sat down heavily on the bench across from her. That is why you were so terrified when I tried to help you. Vela nodded. Every Quen child learns about human cruelty. We are taught that you are the most dangerous species in the galaxy because you combine intelligence with sadism, that you torture prisoners for entertainment. That is insane, Jihoon said quietly. He looked around at his fellow medics working on enemy soldiers. Look around you, Vela. Does this look like torture to you? Vela did look. She saw humans working themselves to exhaustion to save coalition lives. She saw them using their precious medical supplies on enemy soldiers. She saw them being gentle and careful, treating wounds with skill and compassion. No, Vela admitted. Her voice was barely a whisper. It does not look like torture. It looks like you actually care. We do care, Jihoon said. He met her eyes. Humans have fought wars for our entire history. We know war. We know violence. But we also know mercy. We also know that the wounded need help no matter who they are. That is not weakness. That is what makes us human. Vela felt something crack deeper inside her. Everything she believed was wrong. If the coalition was wrong about this, what else were they wrong about? Why were they really fighting this war? The transport continued toward Firebase Nova. Vela lay on her stretcher, watching human medics save the lives of their enemies. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if she had been fighting on the wrong side. Firebase Nova was bigger than Vela expected. The human military hospital sprawled across several buildings, all connected by covered walkways. Jihoon wheeled her through the entrance on a mobile bed. She could walk with help now, but the doctors wanted her to rest her leg as much as possible. The hospital was clean, almost unnaturally clean. White walls, bright lights, the smell of antiseptic in the air. Vela had expected something crude and military. Instead, it looked more advanced than Quen medical facilities. They put her in a private room. A human doctor examined her leg and declared that surgery would not be necessary after all. The healing gel and bone stabilizers had worked better than expected. She would need physical therapy, but she would walk normally again. Vela cried when she heard that. She had been certain she would lose the leg. On her third day in the hospital, a human man came to visit her. He was older than Ji-hoon, maybe 40 years in human terms. He had gray streaks in his hair and wore civilian clothes rather than a military uniform. "Hello, Vela," he said pleasantly. "My name is Dr. Minho Choi. I am a xenoanthropologist. That means I study different alien cultures and how they interact. May I speak with you for a while?" Vela hesitated, then nodded. She was curious about this human who studied aliens. "What do you want to know?" Minho pulled up a chair and sat down. He had a gentle way about him that reminded Vela of Ji-hoon. "I want to understand the Quen protocols," he said. "Ji-hoon told me what you said about them, about how the coalition views humans. I need to know more," so Vela told him. She explained how every Quen child was taught about human danger from an early age, how there were mandatory educational programs about human psychology, how the coalition maintained extensive files on human violence throughout history. "They show us videos," Vela said. "Videos of human wars, humans fighting each other with terrible weapons, cities burning, millions dead. They show us human combat sports where people hurt each other for entertainment, boxing, mixed martial arts. They show us human medical procedures that seem cruel and invasive." Minho listened carefully, his expression growing more troubled with each word. "What else?" he asked quietly. "The protocols say that humans evolved as apex predators on a death world," Vela continued. "That you hunted everything, including each other. That you developed high pain tolerance and the ability to ignore injuries that would stop other species. The conclusion is that this made you fundamentally different from civilized races. That you do not feel empathy the way we do. That you actually enjoy causing pain because you cannot feel it properly yourselves. That is why you thought Ji-hoon would torture you," Minho said. "It was not a question." "Yes," Vela confirmed. "The protocols are very clear. Humans keep prisoners alive to experiment on them, to learn how to cause maximum suffering. Every soldier in the coalition knows this. We are taught that if humans capture us, the best thing to do is take our own lives quickly." Minho closed his eyes. He looked like he might be sick. "Vela," he said after a long moment, "everything you were taught is wrong. Not just a little wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. I know that now," Vela said. "I have seen how you treat prisoners, how you treat the wounded, but I do not understand why the coalition would lie about this." Minho stood up and walked to the window. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. "They are not lying," he said finally. "At least not deliberately. They are misinterpreting, taking facts and twisting them into a narrative that confirms their fears." He turned back to Vela. "Yes. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on Earth, yes. We have high pain tolerance compared to many species. Yes, we have fought terrible wars throughout our history. All of that is true. But the conclusions drawn from those facts are completely wrong." Minho sat back down, leaning forward earnestly. "Humans did not develop empathy despite being predators. We developed empathy because we are predators. Do you understand the difference?" Vela shook her head. "I do not understand." "Humans are social creatures," Minho explained. "We evolved to live in groups, to cooperate, to work together. To do that successfully, we had to understand what others were feeling. We had to be able to imagine their pain and their joy. That is empathy. And yes, we can use that empathy to hurt others more effectively, but we also use it to heal, to comfort, to protect." He pulled out a tablet and showed her images. "Look at these. Throughout human history, we have created hospitals, charities, organizations dedicated to reducing suffering. We have developed elaborate moral codes and laws to restrain our own violent impulses. We write stories about heroes who sacrifice themselves to save others. Our greatest leaders are often those who showed the most compassion, not the most cruelty." Vela looked at the images. Human doctors treating diseases in poor countries. Human volunteers rescuing people from disasters. Human soldiers carrying wounded enemies to safety. "But the videos we were shown," she said. "The wars. The violence. Those were real." "Yes, they were real," Minho agreed. "Humans can be incredibly violent. When we fight hard. But that does not mean we enjoy causing suffering. Most human soldiers suffer psychologically after killing enemies. We call it trauma. Many humans who fight in wars struggle with guilt and nightmares for the rest of their lives. Does that sound like a species that enjoys violence? It did not. Vela thought about Hyejin's face when Kelrin mentioned killing humans. The flash of pain in her eyes quickly hidden. The Coalition thinks your medical procedures are torture, Vela said. They say you cut into bodies while people are still alive. Surgery, Minho said with a sad smile. Yes, we perform surgery. We cut into bodies to repair damage or remove disease. But we use anesthesia. The patients feel no pain during the procedure. We do it to save lives, not to cause suffering. How is that different from any other species' medical treatment? The Coalition says you do not use enough anesthesia, Vela argued, but her voice was weak. That you let patients feel pain. We use exactly as much anesthesia as is safe, Minho corrected. Too much can kill the patient. And you are right that humans can tolerate more pain than many species. But that does not mean we like pain. It just means we can survive more of it. There's a big difference. Vela was quiet for a long time processing this information. So the Quen protocols are based on misunderstanding, she said finally. The Coalition saw human strength and assumed it meant cruelty. They saw our capacity for violence and assumed we had no capacity for mercy. Exactly, Minho said. And once that narrative was established, every piece of evidence was interpreted to support it. Confirmation bias on a galactic scale. But why? Vela asked. Why would the Coalition create such a narrative? Minho's expression turned grim. That is a good question. Fear, perhaps. Humans are aggressive when threatened. We defend ourselves fiercely. Maybe the Coalition needed to paint us as monsters to justify trying to wipe us out. Or someone wanted this war, Vela said slowly. A cold feeling spread through her chest. Someone wanted humans and the Coalition to be enemies. That is what we are starting to suspect, Minho said. But we do not have proof yet. He stood to leave, then paused. Vela, I am writing a report about the Quen protocols. About how they are wrong and why. I would like to include your testimony. Your experience. You have a unique perspective because you believed the protocols, then saw the truth. Would you be willing to help me? Vela thought about her people. About the other Quen soldiers who believed they would be tortured if humans caught them. About the senseless war that was killing both sides. Yes, she said. I will help you. The truth needs to be told, Minho smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile. Thank you, Vela, you are very brave. After he left, Vela lay in her bed thinking, everything she had believed was a lie. The humans were not monsters. They were just people. Complicated people with the capacity for both great violence and great compassion, just like the Quen, just like every species. And if the protocols were a lie, then what else was a lie? Why was she really fighting this war? Vela's leg healed slowly but steadily. After 2 weeks, she could walk with a cane. After 3 weeks, she could walk without help, though she tired easily. Jihun visited her every day, checking her progress and adjusting her treatment. They had become something like friends, though Vela was not sure if you could be friends with your enemy. The hospital was a strange place for a prisoner of war. Vela had her own room, but the door was never locked. She could walk the halls freely, though guards followed her at a distance. She ate the same food as the human staff. She had access to entertainment programs and books. If this was imprisonment, it was nothing like what she expected. What surprised her most was how the humans acted when they thought she was not watching. She saw doctors working 16-hour shifts to care for the wounded. She saw nurses comforting dying patients, holding their hands in final moments. She saw human soldiers visiting wounded Coalition prisoners, bringing them books or games to pass the time. One evening, Vela was walking slowly through the recovery ward when she saw something that changed everything. A young human woman, a private named Yunji Shin, sat beside a bed holding the hand of a dying Varik soldier. The Varik was old and his wounds were too severe. Everyone knew he would not survive the night. Yunji spoke to him softly in his own language. Vela's translator picked up the words. It is okay, Yunji said. You do not have to be afraid. You are not alone. I will stay with you. The Varik's breathing was labored. Why? He rasped. Why do you care? I am nothing to you. You are not nothing, Yunji said firmly. She squeezed his hand gently. No one should die alone. That is what my mother taught me. Every life matters. Every death matters. Vela watched from the doorway as Yoonji stayed with the Varric through his final hours. She sang to him, soft songs in Korean that the translator could not interpret, but the meaning was clear: comfort, peace, compassion. When the Varric finally died, Yoonji closed his eyes gently and sat with him for a while longer, tears running down her face. Vela returned to her room that night and cried, not from pain, but from the weight of understanding. These humans were not monsters. They were the opposite of monsters. And she had been fighting them. She had killed them. The thought made her sick. She had to tell her people the truth. She had to make them understand before more lives were wasted on both sides. Using the communication device in her room, which the humans had never restricted, Vela sent an encrypted message to Quen Command. She explained everything she had seen: the medical care, the compassion, the proof that the Quen protocols were wrong. The response came 3 days later. It was not what she expected. Lieutenant Vela, the message read. It was from Intelligence Officer Thera, her direct superior. Your reports have been received and analyzed. It is the conclusion of Quen intelligence that you have been compromised by human psychological manipulation. The behavior you describe is consistent with documented human deception tactics. They are being kind to you to gain your trust and turn you against your people. This is a standard interrogation technique. Vela stared at the message in disbelief. She wrote back immediately. This is not manipulation. I have seen them treat hundreds of coalition prisoners the same way. I have watched them save enemy lives with their own medical supplies. I have seen their soldiers cry over fallen enemies. This is not an act. This is who they are. Thera's next message was colder. You are ordered to cease all communications about this subject. Your judgment has been impaired by trauma and captivity. Any further reports of this nature will be considered evidence of collaboration with the enemy. You are hereby classified as a compromised asset. Compromised asset. Vela knew what that meant. If the coalition ever got her back, she would face interrogation and possibly execution for treason. But worse, they were not listening. They would not hear the truth. The war would continue based on lies. She went to find Ji-hoon. He was in the staff break room drinking coffee and looking exhausted. He smiled when he saw her. Vela, how is your leg today?
My leg is fine, Vela said.
She sat down across from him. Ji-hoon, I need to tell you something. The coalition knows I am here. I have been sending them reports about what I have seen. About how you treat prisoners. Ji-hoon's expression turned serious, but he did not look angry. What did they say? They think you are manipulating me, Vela said. They think this is all an act to turn me into a spy or collaborator. They will not believe that you are genuinely compassionate. They cannot accept that the Quen protocols are wrong. Ji-hoon sighed. He looked sad but not surprised. We were afraid of that. Changing deeply held beliefs is hard, especially when those beliefs justify a war. There is more, Vela said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I intercepted part of a classified communication. I was not supposed to see it. Thera, my superior, was talking to someone higher up in Quen Command. They were discussing me. What did they say? Ji-hoon asked. Vela's hands shook. They are planning a strike on this hospital. They see me as a liability now, a witness who might testify to things that contradict coalition doctrine. They want to eliminate me and the evidence of human compassion. The strike is scheduled for 3 days from now. Ji-hoon stood up so fast his chair fell over. You are sure about this? Yes, Vela said. I have the communication logs on my personal device. I can show you. Come with me, Ji-hoon said. Right now, we need to tell Captain Da-young immediately. They found Da-young in her office. Vela showed her the intercepted communications. Da-young's face went pale as she read them. They are willing to kill their own soldier to keep this quiet, she said. They are willing to bomb a hospital full of wounded. That is not all, Vela said. The communication mentioned other Quen prisoners at different human facilities. They are planning strikes on those locations too. They are trying to eliminate everyone who has seen the truth about humans. Da-young immediately began issuing orders. The hospital went into emergency evacuation mode. Patients who could be moved were loaded onto transports. Those too injured to move were taken to reinforced bunkers underground. The entire operation took 18 hours of non-stop work. Vela helped where she could despite her leg. She guided stretchers, carried medical supplies, translated for Quen patients who were confused and frightened. Ji-hoon worked beside her the whole time. So did Hyejin and Taewon. and dozens of other humans who refused to abandon their patients. As they worked, Vela thought about what she was doing. By warning the humans, she had committed the ultimate betrayal in the eyes of her people. She was a traitor now. If the Coalition won this war, she would be executed. But how could she not warn them? These humans who had saved her life. These people who had shown her nothing but kindness. The strike came exactly when the intelligence said it would. Quen bombers appeared in the night sky and launched missiles at Firebase Nova. But the hospital was empty. The missiles destroyed empty buildings. No one died. Da-Young stood with Vela on a hill overlooking the burning ruins of the hospital. You saved hundreds of lives today, Da-Young said quietly. Human and Coalition both. You know what this means for you? Yes, Vela said. I am a traitor to my people now. No, Da-Young corrected. You are a person who chose truth over lies. You chose life over death. That is not treason. That is courage. Vela watched the hospital burn. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. But she did not regret it. She could not regret it. Because the truth was more important than loyalty to a lie, Ji-hoon came to stand beside them. He put a hand on Vela's shoulder. A gesture of comfort, of friendship. What will you do now? He asked. I will keep telling the truth, Vela said. The Coalition tried to silence me, but they failed. Now I will make sure everyone hears what I have seen. Both sides need to know the truth about this war. Da-Young nodded slowly. That is going to be dangerous. I know, Vela said. She thought of Yoonji sitting with the dying Varric. She thought of Ji-hoon's gentle hands on her injured leg. She thought of all the humans who had shown her that compassion was not weakness. But someone has to do it. The truth has to be told. And in that moment, standing between her former enemy and her former comrade, Vela realized she was no longer just a Quen soldier. She was something new. Something the war had not planned for. She was someone who had seen both sides and refused to accept the lies anymore. The war had created her as a weapon, but she would become something else entirely. She would become a bridge. The Coalition's attempt to destroy Firebase Nova and kill Vela had failed, but it achieved something they did not intend. News of the attack spread quickly through human military channels. A hospital deliberately targeted. Wounded prisoners nearly murdered by their own side. Human soldiers who had been uncertain about the war, who had questioned whether they were the aggressors, suddenly became convinced that the Coalition leadership was genuinely evil. Captain Da-Young saw this shift in her troops and it worried her. Anger and hatred, she told Ji-hoon privately. They are easy emotions. Much easier than understanding. We cannot let this turn into a war of revenge. But she also saw an opportunity. If Vela's warning had saved hundreds of lives, perhaps her testimony could save thousands more. Perhaps the truth about the Quen protocols could reach people on both sides who were tired of fighting. General Sang-hoon Lee arrived at the temporary hospital 3 days after the bombing. He was a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had been fighting the Coalition since the war began. Vela expected him to hate her. Instead, he surprised her. Lieutenant Vela, he said, using her rank respectfully. Captain Park tells me you risked your life to warn us about the attack. On behalf of the Terran Defense Corps, I thank you. You saved many lives. Vela did not know how to respond. I could not let them die, she said finally. Not after everything they did for me. Sang-hoon nodded. I want to propose something. Dr. Choi has been compiling his report on the Quen protocols. He has evidence that the Coalition's beliefs about humans are based on fundamental misunderstandings. I want to broadcast this report to both sides with your testimony included. Show everyone what really happened to you. Show them the truth. The Coalition will call me a traitor, Vela said. They will say I was brainwashed or tortured. Probably, Sang-hoon agreed. But some people will listen. Some people will question what they have been told. And if we can reach even a small percentage of Coalition citizens and military personnel, we can start to undermine support for the war. Meanwhile, humans will see that not all Coalition members are mindless followers of propaganda. They will see someone brave enough to speak truth. Vela thought about this. She thought about Eunji comforting the dying Varric, about Ji-hoon's gentle hands, about all the Coalition soldiers who believed they were fighting monsters. Yes, she said. I will do it. The broadcast was prepared carefully. Dr. Choi presented the scientific evidence first. He explained human evolution and psychology. He showed how the Quen protocols misinterpreted human behavior. He was academic and calm, presenting facts without emotion. Then came Vela's testimony. She sat in front of the camera and told her story. She described being trapped under the beam, expecting torture. She described Jihoon's gentle treatment. She described watching humans save coalition lives with the same care they showed their own people. She described Yunji sitting with the dying Varric. She described the hospital bombing and how humans evacuated their enemies to save them. I believed the Quen protocols my entire life, Vela said to the camera. I was taught that humans were savage monsters who enjoyed causing pain. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Humans can be violent, yes. They are fierce warriors when threatened, but they are also capable of great compassion. They have rules they follow even in war. They save enemy lives. They comfort the dying. They showed me more kindness as a prisoner than I have sometimes seen among my own people. The Quen protocols are not just wrong. They are lies that perpetuate a war that should never have started. The broadcast ended with a simple question from Vela. Ask yourself why your leaders want you to believe humans are incapable of mercy. Ask yourself who benefits from this war. Ask yourself if you are really fighting for the right reasons. The broadcast went out on open channels, transmitted to both human and coalition space. The coalition tried to jam it, but the human military had anticipated that. They sent the message through hundreds of relay stations. Millions of people across dozens of worlds saw it. The response was immediate and explosive. On human worlds, civilians who had been angry about the hospital bombing saw Vela's courage and were reminded that the enemy was not a monolith, that there were good people on the other side. Support for peace negotiations increased dramatically. In coalition space, the reaction was more complex. Official government channels denounced Vela as a traitor, and the broadcast as propaganda. But on personal communication networks, the message spread like fire. Ordinary coalition citizens began asking questions. Soldiers began sharing their own stories of human mercy. A few coalition commanders quietly reached out to human forces to discuss ceasefires, but not everyone was pleased. The hardliners in coalition leadership saw Vela's testimony as a direct threat to their power. If the war ended, they would lose influence and resources. They needed the war to continue. 3 days after the broadcast, intelligence reports reached General Sang-hoon. Coalition extremists were planning another strike. This time not on a hospital, on the location where the broadcast was made. They had traced the transmission and identified the facility. More importantly, they knew Vela was there. They are sending a full military strike team, Sang-hoon told Da-young and Vela. 20 elite soldiers. Their mission is to capture or kill you, destroy all evidence of the broadcast preparation, and eliminate key human personnel involved in the transmission. They are coming tomorrow. Vela felt cold. They are serious about silencing me. They are desperate, Sang-hoon corrected. Your message is reaching people. It is working. They need to stop you before more of their own people start questioning the war. We should move Vela somewhere safer, Da-young said. No, Vela said firmly. Both humans looked at her in surprise. If I run, they will chase me. If I hide, they will find me eventually. But if I stay, we can use this. We can show the galaxy what happens when the coalition tries to silence the truth. You want to be bait, Sang-hoon said. It was not a question. I want to prove my point, Vela corrected. The coalition leadership is willing to send soldiers to kill one of their own, rather than let her speak the truth. That proves everything I said in the broadcast. We can document it, show the galaxy what they are willing to do. Da-young shook her head. Too dangerous. If anything goes wrong, everything about this is dangerous, Vela interrupted. But I did not survive and betray my people just to hide now. Let them come. Let the galaxy see what happens. The strike team arrived exactly when intelligence predicted, but the humans were ready. They had cameras everywhere. They had defensive positions prepared. When the coalition soldiers breached the facility, expecting to find an easy target, they found a prepared defense instead. The strike team leader was a Quen officer named Thera. The same Thera who had called Vela compromised. She saw Vela standing in the open, flanked by human guards, and her face twisted with anger. Traitor, Thera shouted. You have betrayed everything. Your people, your honor, your species. I have betrayed nothing but lies, Vela shouted back. The cameras recorded everything. You are proving my point, Thera. You are willing to kill me to keep the truth from spreading. You bombed a hospital.
You are attacking now.
All because you cannot accept that the Quen protocols are wrong. The protocols are based on centuries of evidence. Thera screamed. The protocols are based on fear and misunderstanding. Vela shouted. Look around you, Thera. The humans could have killed me 100 times. Instead, they saved my life. They healed me. They treated me with respect. When did our people ever show such mercy to human prisoners? Thera raised her weapon, but one of her own soldiers grabbed her arm. Sir, the soldier said hesitantly, what if she is right? What if we have been wrong?
Do not listen to her!
Thera snarled. She is contaminated by human influence. But other soldiers in the strike team were lowering their weapons. They looked uncertain, conflicted. They had seen the broadcast. They had heard Vela's testimony. And now they saw that the coalition leadership was indeed willing to kill one of their own to suppress the truth. Stand down, General Sang-hoon's voice boomed across the facility. Coalition strike team, you are surrounded. We do not want to kill you. We want you to hear the truth. Just like Vela heard it. Just like everyone deserves to hear it. One by one, the coalition soldiers lowered their weapons. All except Thera. She aimed at Vela, her hand shaking with rage. You will not destroy everything we have built with your lies. Vela stood her ground. She was terrified, but she did not move. The only one lying here is you, Thera, and deep down you know it. For a long moment, no one moved. Thera's finger was on the trigger. Then slowly she lowered the weapon, not because she believed, but because she saw that she had lost. Her own soldiers would not support her. The truth was stronger than her orders. The entire incident was recorded. Every word. Every moment. Within hours, it was broadcast across the galaxy. The coalition could not suppress it. The truth was out and it could not be put back. The coalition parliament convened an emergency tribunal 6 weeks after Vela's second broadcast. The pressure from their own citizens had become too great to ignore. Millions of coalition members were demanding answers. Were the Quen protocols accurate? Had they been fighting an unjust war? Why was their leadership trying so hard to silence one soldier's testimony? The tribunal was held on the neutral station of Confluence Point, a massive space station that served as a diplomatic meeting place. Representatives from all coalition species attended. The humans were invited to send their own delegation to present evidence. General Sang-hoon chose his team carefully. Dr. Min-ho Choi to present the scientific evidence, Captain Dayong Park to speak about military conduct, and several other experts on human culture and biology, and Vela. She would testify again, this time not through a broadcast but face-to-face with the leaders who had called her a traitor. Ji-hoon came with them as her personal medic and friend. He stayed close to Vela during the journey to Confluence Point. She was nervous, more nervous than she had been facing Thera's weapon. What if they do not believe me? She asked Ji-hoon the night before the tribunal. What if I went through all this for nothing? Then at least you tried, Ji-hoon said. That is all anyone can do. Tell the truth and hope it matters. You make it sound simple, Vela said. Ji-hoon smiled. It is simple. It is just not easy. The tribunal chamber was enormous. Thousands of coalition delegates filled the seats. The human delegation looked very small standing at the center. Vela stood with them, the only coalition member on the human side. She could feel the weight of countless eyes on her. The tribunal was led by Elder Corvin of the Threxian people, a species known for their commitment to justice. He was ancient and wise, his scales dulled by age but his eyes still sharp. We are here, Corvin announced, to examine the validity of the Quen protocols and to determine if our understanding of humanity is accurate. Dr. Min-ho Choi, you may present your evidence. Min-ho stepped forward. He was calm and professional, but Vela could see the passion behind his eyes. This was his life's work, understanding how species misunderstood each other and helping them find common ground. The Quen protocols, Min-ho began, state that humans are fundamentally cruel beings who enjoy causing pain. This conclusion is based on 3 main observations: human evolutionary history as predators, human capacity for violence, and human cultural practices that involve simulated combat or invasive medical procedures. I will address each of these points and show why the conclusions drawn from them are incorrect. He brought up holographic displays showing human evolution. Humans evolved as persistence hunters and social creatures. We hunted in groups which required cooperation, communication, and the ability to understand what our companions were thinking and feeling. This is the foundation of human empathy. We developed the ability to imagine ourselves in another's position, To feel what they feel, a Quen delegate interrupted. But this empathy could be used to cause more effective suffering. You understand pain to inflict it better. That is true, Minho admitted. Humans can use empathy to hurt others, but we primarily developed it to help others, to strengthen our communities, to care for our young and old and injured. Let me show you something. The display changed to show human history, not the wars that the Coalition always focused on, but the other parts. Humans caring for disabled family members, humans developing medicine, humans creating art and music to express shared emotions, humans building societies based on the idea that all people deserve dignity and respect. Yes, humans fight wars, Minho said. Yes, we can be violent. But look at what happens after our wars. We rebuild. We create laws to prevent future conflicts. We establish hospitals and schools. We mourn our enemies as well as our friends. This is not the behavior of beings who enjoy suffering. He paused, letting the images sink in. The Coalition has made a fundamental error. You saw human strength and mistook it for cruelty. You saw human resilience and mistook it for insensitivity. You saw human violence and forgot to look at human mercy. A Varick delegate spoke up. But your pain tolerance is exceptionally high. You can endure injuries that would incapacitate most species. This suggests you do not feel pain the same way we do. We feel pain, Minho corrected. We feel it very clearly. We have simply evolved to function despite pain. This is not because we are numb to it. It is because our ancestors who could keep running despite injuries were more likely to survive. But feeling pain and being able to function through pain are different things. He brought up medical data. Look at these scans of human brains responding to pain stimuli. The pain centers activate strongly. We feel pain as intensely as most species. We have simply developed better mechanisms for coping with it. And because we understand pain so well, we have become very good at treating it. Not just in humans, but in other species too. Captain Da-Young Park stepped forward next. I would like to address the claim that humans torture prisoners, she said. Her voice was firm and clear. The Terran Defense Corps has strict rules about prisoner treatment. We are required to provide medical care to wounded enemies. We are forbidden from harming prisoners. We are taught that mistreating captives is not just wrong, it is a crime punishable by military court. But you must have some who break these rules. A Quen delegate challenged. No species is perfect. Yes, Da-Young admitted. Some humans have violated these rules, and when they are caught, they are punished. Severely. Because we recognize that such behavior is wrong and harmful to everyone, including ourselves. We do not tolerate cruelty among our own people. She brought up records. Humans court-martialed for prisoner abuse. Humans imprisoned for violating the rules of war. We police ourselves, Da-Young said, because we know what we are capable of, and we choose to be better than our worst impulses. Then it was Vela's turn to speak. She walked to the center of the chamber. Her leg was strong now, completely healed. She looked up at the thousands of delegates watching her. I am Lieutenant Vela of the Quen military, she said. I believed the protocols my entire life. When Corporal Ji-Hoon Kim found me wounded on Thresh 7, I was certain he would torture me. I begged him to kill me quickly, but he did not. He saved my life. And in saving my life, he destroyed my beliefs. She told her story again, but this time she had Ji-Hoon beside her. She pointed to him. This human spent hours treating my injuries. He used their advanced medicine to save my leg. He gave me water when I was thirsty. He stayed with me when I was afraid. And he did this knowing I was an enemy soldier who might have killed his friends. She gestured to the human delegation. These humans evacuated an entire hospital to save coalition prisoners from our own bombing. They risk their lives to save ours. They cry when we die. They showed me more compassion than some of my own people did. An older Quen delegate stood. Vela recognized him as High Commander Farhan, one of the architects of the war. You have been compromised by human psychological warfare, he said coldly. Everything you witnessed was calculated to turn you against your people. No, Vela said firmly. I have seen human medics work until they collapse from exhaustion to save coalition lives. I have seen human soldiers comfort dying enemies. I have watched a human woman named Yunji sit with a Varick soldier through his last hours, holding his hand so he would not die alone. That was not psychological warfare. That was compassion. Real, genuine compassion. She looked directly at Farhan. You sent Thera to kill me. You bombed a hospital full of wounded. You did these things to hide the truth, and that proves everything I have said. If the protocols were accurate, you would not need to silence me. The evidence would speak for itself. But you know the protocols are lies. You have always known. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouting, arguments breaking out. Corvin called for order, but it took several minutes to restore calm. Then something unexpected happened. One of the coalition soldiers who had been part of Thera's strike team stood up. His name was Kelvin, and he had been the one who grabbed Thera's arm to stop her from shooting Vela. "I want to testify," Kelvin said. "I was captured by humans during the confusion after the strike attempt. I spent 2 weeks in human custody before being released in a prisoner exchange. I expected torture. I expected cruelty. Instead, they gave me medical care. They fed me the same food they ate. They let me communicate with my family. They treated me with respect." Another coalition soldier stood, then another, then a dozen more. All had been prisoners of humans at some point. All testified to the same thing. Good treatment, medical care, respect. "They are lying," Farron shouted. "All of them are compromised." "Or," Elder Corvin said quietly, "you are the one lying. You and everyone else who promoted the protocols knowing they were false." The tribunal lasted 3 days. Expert after expert testified. Scientists presented data. Soldiers shared experiences, and slowly, undeniably, the truth emerged. The Quen protocols were not based on evidence. They were based on fear and propaganda. They were lies designed to justify a war that should never have started. On the final day, Elder Corvin delivered the tribunal's conclusion. "It is the finding of this body that the Quen protocols are fundamentally flawed and do not accurately represent human nature. Humans are capable of both great violence and great calm." The tribunal's conclusion did not end the war immediately. 3 years of fighting had created too much momentum, too much anger, too much blood, but it created something that had not existed before. Hope. Hope that peace was possible. Hope that both sides could find a way forward. Ceasefires began spreading across the contested territories. Some commanders on both sides ignored the tribunal's findings and kept fighting, but more and more soldiers on both sides simply stopped shooting. They were tired of the dying, tired of the lies. They wanted to go home. High Commander Farran and the other hardliners who had promoted the Quen protocols were removed from power. Some faced criminal charges for deliberately starting an unjust war. The political upheaval in the coalition was massive and would take years to settle. But the direction was clear. The war had to end. 2 months after the tribunal, representatives from both sides met at Confluence Point again. This time not for accusations and evidence, but for peace negotiations. The talks were difficult. There was so much damage to repair, so much mistrust to overcome, but both sides were committed to finding a solution. Vela attended the negotiations as an observer. She was not a diplomat or politician, but her story had started this change, and people wanted her there. She sat in the observation gallery with Ji-hun beside her, watching as humans and coalition species argued over the terms of peace. "It is slow," Vela said quietly to Ji-hun. "They argue about every detail." "That is how peace works," Ji-hun said. "War is fast and simple. You just destroy, but building something new takes time and patience." As the weeks passed, the framework of a peace agreement emerged. Borders would be redrawn. Prisoners would be exchanged. Reparations would be paid by both sides for damages. And most importantly, both sides agreed to create new protocols for interaction. Not protocols based on fear and misunderstanding, but protocols based on truth and mutual respect. Someone suggested they call it the Vela Accord. Vela was mortified when she heard this. "You cannot name it after me," she protested to anyone who would listen. "I just told the truth. That is not worthy of having something named after you." But General Sang-hoon disagreed. "You did more than tell the truth," he said. "You risked everything to do it. You were willing to be called a traitor, willing to be killed, because you believed that truth mattered more than loyalty to a lie. That is exactly the kind of courage we want to commemorate." The name stuck. The Vela Accord became the foundation for human coalition relations. It acknowledged past mistakes on both sides. It established rules for future interactions. It created joint institutions where humans and coalition species could work together. And it formally renounced the Quen protocols as false and harmful. During the peace negotiations, Vela noticed something that made her smile. Human and coalition delegates who argued fiercely during the day often ate meals together in the evening. They were learning to see each other as people rather than enemies. It was exactly what had happened to her with Ji-hoon and the other humans. Understanding came through contact, through shared experiences, through recognizing common hopes and fears. One evening, Thera approached Vela in the dining hall. Vela tensed, remembering the last time they faced each other. But Thera's weapon was gone and her expression was different. Not angry. Just sad and tired. May I sit? Thera asked. Vela nodded, curious. Thera sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither spoke. I was wrong, Thera finally said. About everything. About humans. About you. About what I was willing to do to maintain the lie. She looked down at her hands. I convinced myself that the protocols were true because accepting they were false meant accepting I had wasted my life fighting the wrong war. Killing the wrong people. What will you do now? Vela asked. I do not know, Thera admitted. I have been removed from military service. I am facing charges for the hospital bombing. I will probably spend years in prison. She looked up at Vela. But before that happens, I wanted to tell you that you were right. About everything. And I am sorry. For trying to kill you, for trying to silence the truth, for being a coward who chose comfortable lies over hard truths. Vela was quiet for a moment. I do not forgive you, she said honestly. Not yet. Maybe never. You tried to kill people who saved my life. You bombed a hospital. That is not something I can just forget. I know, Thera said. I am not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What you did took courage that I did not have. After Thera left, Ji-hoon came to sit with Vela. He had watched the exchange from across the room. That must have been hard, he said. It was, Vela agreed. But it was also necessary. She needed to say it and I needed to hear it. That is part of peace too, I think. Acknowledging what was done wrong. The final peace treaty was signed 3 months after the tribunal. It was a massive ceremony attended by leaders from every human and coalition world. Vela stood with the human delegation, wearing a special uniform that had been designed for her. Not human, not Quan, but something new. A symbol of the bridge between species. When the treaty was signed, people cheered and cried. The war was over. Really over. Ships would stop fighting. Soldiers could go home. The dying could finally stop. But Vela knew the real work was just beginning. A treaty could end a war, but it could not immediately end hatred and mistrust. That would take time, years, maybe generations. People on both sides who had lost loved ones would struggle to forgive. Fear and prejudice would not disappear overnight. That was why, 2 weeks after the treaty signing, Vela and Ji-hoon stood together at the opening of the first joint human coalition medical facility. It was built on neutral ground, staffed by doctors and nurses from multiple species, designed to treat everyone equally. Vela had accepted a position there as a medical coordinator. Her injury had ended her combat career, but she discovered she had a talent for organization and for helping different species work together. Ji-hoon had also transferred to the facility. He wanted to continue the work of healing, and he wanted to train the next generation of medics to see patients as people, not as sides in a conflict. On opening day, the facility was full of patients. Humans and Quen and Threxians and Variks and species from all across known space. They came because they were sick or injured and needed help. The doctors and nurses treated them all the same. No one asked which side they had fought on. No one cared. Here, in this place, everyone was just someone who needed healing. Vela walked through the halls with Ji-hoon, checking on different departments. They came to the trauma center where emergency cases were treated. A young Quen medic named Lyra was treating a human soldier who had been injured in one of the last battles before the treaty. The soldier was in pain, frightened, far from home. Lyra worked on him with focused concentration. She was gentle and careful. When the soldier asked if she was going to hurt him, Lyra looked confused. No, she said simply. I am going to help you. That is what doctors do. Vela smiled. Lyra had graduated from the Quen Military Academy just before the war ended. She had been taught the protocols, but she had also seen Vela's broadcasts. She had chosen to believe the truth instead of the lies. She represented the future, a future where the next generation would not be raised on propaganda and fear. That evening, Vela stood on the facility's observation deck, looking out at the stars. Ji-hoon joined her carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed her one and they stood together in comfortable silence. Do you ever regret it? Ji-hoon asked after a while. Everything you gave up? Your career, your standing with your own people, your old life? Vela thought about this. She thought about the fear she had felt when Ji-hoon first touched her leg. She thought about the moment when everything she believed shattered. She thought about becoming a traitor and an exile. She thought about Thera's weapon pointed at her heart, but she also thought about Yoonji sitting with the dying Varric. She thought about humans evacuating their enemies to save them from bombs. She thought about young Lyra treating a human soldier with the same care she would show a Quen. She thought about all the lives saved because she had been willing to tell the truth. No, she said finally. I do not regret it. What I lost was built on lies anyway. What we are building now is built on truth. That is worth everything, Ji-hoon smiled. You know, when I found you under that beam, I never imagined all of this would happen. I was just trying to save one person's life. You did save one person's life, Vela said. Mine, and I used that life to try to save others. That is how change happens, I think. One person at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of compassion that spreads outward. She looked down at her leg, fully healed now. She could walk without pain. She could run if she needed to. All because a human soldier had chosen to help an enemy. That single choice, that one moment of compassion, had changed the course of history. The protocols were wrong about many things, Vela said, but they were especially wrong about one thing. They said humans were incapable of mercy, that you could only destroy, never build. But I learned that humans are actually very good at building. You built medicine to heal. You built laws to restrain your own violence. You built peace even when war was easier.